Alright, so we all have our favourite drivers in Formula 1. Whether you're a Max Verstappen fan or a Lewis Hamilton fan, you enjoy the cheeky personality of Daniel Ricciardo, or you like the comeback story of Pierre Gasly, there are 19 fantastic drivers that you can choose from to support with varying personalities. Or Nikita Mazepin. Well, my favourite driver between 2014 and 2018 was Marcus Ericsson, and no, I'm not joking, I have genuine reasons why I supported Marcus as a driver. He last raced in Formula 1 in 2018 and left behind his
I think Ericsson hit us
moment in Baku, and the images of him barrel rolling in Monza after the DRS failure in Free Practice 2 will live long in our memories. So, as an Ericsson fan, I just thought to myself, Marcus Ericsson, was he more than just a meme? We'll start at the very beginning, and Marcus began his racing career as most drivers do, in go-karts. However, he didn't come from a motorsport family. Instead, he started his career
by accident.
He went to a local track, aged 8, and was extremely quick. He was noticed by Swedish racer Freddie Ekblom, who persuaded Marcus's parents to buy him a kart. He raced in karts for 4 years and was clearly very talented, but, as is the way with Formula racing, money was something which held him back. In 2006, Marcus's kart skills were spotted by Indy 500 winner Kenny Brack, who said Marcus had qualities which reminded him of the great Alain Prost. This showcase kicked off Marcus's Formula 1 career because Kenny Brack persuaded Richard Dutton, the owner of the British Formula 3 and more importantly Fortec Motorsport, to hire Marcus for the 2007 Formula BMW UK series. In that series, he raced 18 times for Fortec, picking up 7 wins, 11 pole positions, 6 fastest laps, 13 podiums and won the championship convincingly, with 4 wins in a row to seal the deal. Pretty impressive for his first season in actual cars. 2008 came along and Marcus moved up to the British Formula 3 category, also owned by Richard Dutton, who we met earlier. This season was tricky for our friend Marcus, who didn't pick up a single win all season, but he did get 2 pole positions, 4 fastest laps and 5 podiums, ending up 5th in the championship. Not too bad, but not really groundbreaking. He then headed off to Macau for the prestigious event, and he didn't actually do too badly. In qualifying, he ended up in 15th place in a pretty respectable field, which included the likes of Roberto Merri, Brandon Hartley, Sam Bird, Jaime Alguersuari, Max Chilton and Jules Bianchi. In the qualifying race, he performed well and would be starting 8th for the main event. However, this is where Marcus's Macau fun stopped, because he was out of the Lisboa corner on lap 1, and that was that. 2009 saw a move to the Japanese Formula 3 Championship, where he would win the championship, picking up 5 wins, 5 pole positions, 9 fastest laps, 11 podiums to take the crown. You could argue that the field wasn't the strongest, but a championship win is a championship win, and this year also saw a brief return to the British Formula 3 Championship, where he would only compete in 6 rounds, taking 2 wins, a pole position and 3 podiums. Marcus ended 2009 with another trip to Macau, where he picked up pole position, 2nd place in the qualifying race and 4th place in the main race. This is extremely impressive considering the field featured the likes of Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, Brendan Hartley, Sam Bird, Max Chilton, Jules Bianchi and Alexander Sims. It's almost like in qualifying, Marcus found a huge amount of pace and his Toyota car was quicker than the 2014 Caterham car. I know we haven't even got to Formula 1 yet, but it's never too early for a Caterham joke. Into the winter of 2009 to 2010, he competed in the GP2 Asia Series, but his results were nothing compared to his Macau success, with a highest place finish of 11th in the 4 rounds he competed in. Maybe his Macau pace was just a one-off. In 2010, Marcus moved to GP2 full-time, where he completed another 20 rounds, taking 1 win in Valencia, but that was the highlight of what was otherwise a pretty miserable season for Marcus. Again, maybe this is just another example of glimmers of rapid pace hiding behind painfully inconsistent results. Admittedly, he was driving for Supernova Racing, the same team he'd been with for the 2 of the rounds of the previous winter series, so the car wasn't great, but still only scoring 11 points in a full season of GP2 isn't fantastic either. In 2011, Marcus was back in GP2, but this time with iSport International. This season was both better and worse at the same time. Yes, his 11th place finish in the standings was a notable improvement on the 17th place in the previous season, but he didn't score a single win all season, with his highlights instead coming from podiums in Catalunya and at Silverstone. 2/3 of his points finishes came in those 2 rounds, and the lowest point of the season was the notable double retirement in Monaco. He also competed in the GP2 Asia Series and the GP2 final, with no real notable results, barring a couple of podiums. Now don't get me wrong, these results aren't horrendous, but they're not really world-breaking by any means. 2012 was more the same, still with iSport this time, and 1 win at Spa, 5 podiums, finishing a career best of 8th in the championship in GP2. Now again, GP2 is supposed to be the proving ground for drivers to show their worth in Formula 1. And while these results are decent enough, they don't scream the next global megastar, especially considering the fact that in the 2012 GP2 series, that season didn't quite have the names that would set Formula 1 alight. Esteban Gutierrez, Max Chilton and Jolyon Palmer didn't quite do this, and this disappoints me somewhat. Anyway, in 2013, Marcus returned to GP2 with his best ever shot at the title so far, racing with the competitive Dams team. This time, he finished 6th in the championship with the win at the Nürburgring, 4 more podiums, but then the drivers which finished ahead of him in the standings were Fabio Lima, Sam Bird, James Calado, Felipe Nasr and Stefan Coletti. What probably cost Marcus a proper shot at the title was the fact he went the first 9 rounds without actually scoring a point. This run of terrible form highlights his inconsistency, which overshadows some good real pace. Not many drivers get 4 shots at the GP2 title, so the fact that his closest finish was still 80 points off the title isn't great. However, Marcus would get his shot in Formula 1, signing for the Caterham team in 2014. Now, before we get to Formula 1, if you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing because I would love to do this full time one day, and so any support from all of you would be massively appreciated. Right, now to his Caterham days. Caterham were already having off-track issues, so signing Marcus was a financial move as he brought decent backing to the team with the Solana sponsor. However, what didn't change was the fact that just how terrible the car was. Not only was it not very quick, but the front end also looked like that. Yeah, it looked like that. And, well, the livery was also a disgusting green colour, and with what few sponsors they had, the one that stuck out to me the most was the fact that one logo on the car was that of Queen's Park Rangers Football Club. How, despite being 2 leagues above the football team which I support, still accommodate a stadium with 10,000 seats less. I know Caterham and QPR shared the same owner, but, I mean, still. Anyway, most of the screen time that Caterham got wasn't that positive, considering most of the time I saw a Caterham when I was 10 years old was either when they were being lapped or when Marcus had stuck it in the wall. You'd think the green cruise ship would be accustomed to the wet conditions, but that wasn't meant to be, as in a wet qualifying in Marcus's second Formula 1 race in Malaysia, he binned his green lorry in the wall and that was his qualifying over. Other crashes included one in qualifying at Mirabeau with Felipe Massa, which was quite embarrassing, and another one in the wet this time at Turn 3 in Hungary. His season highlights included an 11th place finish in Monaco, taking Caterham desperately close to their first ever point in Formula 1, and the fact he wouldn't have to drive for Caterham again, he'd be joining Sauber for 2015. He terminated his contract with Caterham when they were in administration before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, so he didn't sit behind the wheel for them for that event. Instead, Will Stevens took over his car. Marcus's first adventure in Formula 1 wasn't a great success, but hopefully greener grass lay on the other side in Switzerland, and now it's time for me to pass over to today's guest, Ben, also known as Formula 1 Frenzy, who will take you through 2015 and 2016.
On his first outing for Sauber, Ericsson scored an impressive 8th place, in what was one of the most underrated car liveries in recent F1 history. This position would prove to be his highest finish that year, and Marcus would drop the ball until the middle of the year when he once again picked up some decent results. Despite this, he would only rack up a total of 9 points in 2015, placing him P18 in the Drivers' Championship. Sauber got off to an amazing start in 2016 now they didn't even show up at Woods testing. Ericsson managed a couple of Q2 appearances with no real standout performances and amassed a grand total of 0 points in the 2016 season.
And now for 2017, Marcus was still with Sauber, this time teamed up with German prospect Pascal Wehrlein, who actually outscored Marcus in 2016, driving a Manor car with all the acceleration of a JCB bulldozer, and the two of them were made to drive a navy blue and gold bus. The car looked great, but it wasn't quick at all. Pascal's 8th place finish in Spain after a superbly executed one-stop strategy was the highlight of an otherwise a pretty miserable season. And when the two collided, fighting for 10th place in Baku, with Pascal coming off less worse and nicking the final point, Marcus had no more real chances to score, with good drives to 11th place in Spain and Mexico being the highlights. Considering the fact that Pascal was being considered for the Mercedes seat that season, but ended up in the Sauber, which is almost a downgrade of the century, Marcus more than held his own, but sadly didn't quite have the luck to show for it in the standings. In 2018, Sauber chose to keep Marcus for the financial reason, and paired him up with emerging superstar Charles Leclerc, and this would be a make or break season for our mate Marcus. 2018 actually started quite well for Marcus, with 2 points in Bahrain kicking off his season, and whilst his teammates struggled with the car, Marcus was doing okay. However, in Baku, Charles had finally got up to grips with the car and drove it to a stunning 6th place. Marcus drove a quiet race up until the safety car period before he channeled his inner Obi-Wan Kenobi to send Grosjean into the wall. Immediately, thousands upon thousands of tweets were sent laughing about how Ericsson had seemingly hit Grosjean, according to the Haas engineer that was, and that was that.
I think Ericsson hit us.
I think the Haas engineer just couldn't believe Grosjean had quite dropped it on the exit of turn number 13 into the wall under safety car conditions. Poor Marcus was drawn into something that he hadn't actually done. A crash at turn 1 at Silverstone added to Marcus's woes before a huge accident in FP2 at Monza sent him barrel rolling to Timbuktu. Thankfully, Marcus was okay and still able to compete for the rest of the season. Sauber announced their 2019 driver lineup on the 25th of September, which included Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi, and it sadly didn't include Marcus, so it was confirmed that his career in Formula 1 would end at the end of 2018. His final notable action in Formula 1 was a simply staggering lap in Q3 in Brazil, which put him a career best 6th on the grid. That is a sensational lap in order to drag that boat of a Sauber right up to 6th. Sadly, however, he was forced to retire in that race, and it was in his final Grand Prix that he also had to retire. This is slightly ironic because it sums up how Marcus's career was a career that never quite got going. He then moved to IndyCar after his career in Formula 1 and had some pretty good results, showing that he was still actually a properly quick racer. Overall, was Marcus worthy of a Formula 1 seat? Yes, definitely. Some good performances throughout his junior career show this 100%. Was he good enough for a Formula 1 championship? No. His junior Formula E results don't show us a level of consistency that he would have required to take the Formula 1 crown, even in a car good enough. But was he also a really nice guy to have around the paddock? Yes. And so, as a Marcus fan, I'm glad he was in the sport for a while. And guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like and let me know what you think of this video style in the comments section below. Subscribe if you are new around here and you want to see Formula 1 content 3 times a week and career mode videos, and I will catch you in the next one. Later, guys.